Welcome everybody to another Thursday night shir. This is a class on Parsha of the week. This week's Parsha is Parshas Yitro, and we'll be going through the Parsha with the commentary of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. We'll see a couple of insights this week. There are two things that are actually quite fascinating that I want to share with you. One is a small little topic, and the other one is really helps give identity to the Jewish people as a whole. And we'll see those together. And as always, I will project. I'll show you the sources on the screen. I'll share my screen, and that way we can see this together. So, as you can see, Torah tells us that Yitro had heard what had happened to the Jewish people. Vayishma Yitro. Yitro had heard. I'll just scroll back to the beginning of the parsha. Yitro Kohen Midyan. He was the priest of Midyan, the father-in-law of Moshe. Kol asher asa Elokim Moshe liYisrael amo. Everything that Hashem had done for Moshe and the Jewish people. For Hashem took out the Jewish people from Egypt. And then Moshe comes to the desert. He brings Yisro comes to the desert and he brings Moshe's wife, Tzipora, and their two sons, Gershom and Eliezer, and they reunite the family. And Yisro is so amazed at what happened that he becomes a Jew. He wants to convert and becomes a Jew. And you know how it is. As soon as Yisro is finally together with Moshe, so he spent about one day into his visit, and he's already got some strong advice. This is where all the father-in-law jokes come from, that Yisro spent just a few hours with his son-in-law, and he was already trying to correct him and tell him he had been doing things wrong. Now, this correction that Yisro was making was actually a very good correction. Yisro had witnessed Moshe Rabbeinu standing and the entire Jewish nation sitting, and the other way around, I'm sorry, that the entire nation standing and Moshe Rabbeinu was sitting and judging anything that came to him. People would line up day and night, and Moshe Rabbeinu would judge and judge and judge. And Yisro said to himself, this is a bad model. It's not good. You have one person that's in charge of everything, and nobody can go ask anybody else. And it's a long, arduous process. And there's such a long line. People are not going to be happy. Moshe is going to get burned out. This is not a good system. And therefore, Yisro goes ahead and he suggests to Moshe, says, let me give you a totally different system. Says you should have different levels of judges, and each of those judges will judge whatever they can do. You'll be at the top. And if there's anything that any level of these judges cannot decide or cannot figure out or cannot adjudicate, they'll come to you. You'll be the final line. You'll be the bottom line. But at least you won't be having to field every single question, and you'll train other people to be ready to go ahead and judge as well. And Moshe Rabbeinu takes Yisro's advice, and sure enough, he sets up exactly what Yisro had suggested. Now, the pasuk tells us, "Vayishma Moshe lekol choseno." Moshe listened to the voice of his father-in-law, and vayaz kol asher omar, and he did everything he said. Okay, and what he says is, "Vayibchar Moshe anshe chayil." Moshe chooses very special individuals we call Yisro, and they're put up as the leaders or the judges of the people. And as it says, "V'shafetu esa'am," they judge the nation b'choles at all times. Hakashi is a davar hakashi yivin al Moshe. Anything that they couldn't handle, that went to Moshe. B'chol davar hakati yishputu heim. But whatever they could judge, that they dealt with on their own. And Moshe sends his father-in-law, says, goodbye, thanks for coming. It was a nice visit. You're more than welcome to go home. Not that he was kicking him out, but rather Yisro wants to go back home. He wanted to get the rest of his family and bring them back to the desert. So now the Orach Chaim HaKadosh is going to ask us a very basic question. We understand that Yisro was a very unique individual. We understand that Yisro was able to come to a realization that literally everybody else in the world did not really come to. Everybody knew about the splitting of the sea. Everybody knew that the Jewish people had left Egypt. They knew about the plagues. They knew about the war with Amalek. Everybody knew. It wasn't just Yisro. It was international news. It was on every single media outlet on the planet at the time. And therefore, why didn't anybody else come and say, listen, wow, we see how great God is. We see how great the Jewish people are. We want to convert as well. Yisro was the only one. Okay, so why didn't they come? They didn't pay attention. They didn't take it to heart. They heard about it and they were amazed. They were inspired for a minute. It didn't stick with them. And therefore, Yisro was very unique, where he took the inspiration to heart and wanted to live with that inspiration. And therefore, he did something. He acted on it. So we know that this week's parsha, it's called Yisro. The name of the parsha is called Yisro. And Yisro had many different names, and the name Yisro comes from the word yeser, from extra, because there was an extra parsha that was introduced into the Torah because of him. So now the question is that the Orach Chaim is going to ask us, is what's the real understanding? What was so special about Yisro that this is the reward they should give? Okay, Yisro is a good person. He deserves a tremendous amount of honor, and therefore Hashem could have given him honor in many, many ways. So why did Hashem feel this is the way I'm going to honor Yisro? I'm going to give him a parsha in the Torah. So let's take a look at this first piece. It's a short piece, but I saw it and I felt it beautiful to see. Ve'isi lasei slave. So right up here, Ve'isi lasei slave. I wanted to give some thought. Eich zacha Yisro shetichtav al yado parsha zu, that he should merit that this parsha should be written because of him. Nehein emes. It's true. Ki kaved Moshe eved Hashem. V'hinei scharish kavle Hashem. He gave honor to Moshe by bringing him into his home, taking care of him, and therefore Hashem said, "I'll give you kavod." Elahaya Hashem yachol asais lo derech kavod acher. Lo b'derech zeh she'ira chas v'shol. So Kadosh Baruch Hu could have done anything to pay back Yisro and give him some sort of honor, and instead Hashem gave him the parsha. Now Hashem could have done whatever it was that he wanted, and instead he gave the parsha. Now imagine what people might think. There is an impression that people might think that had Yisro not come, so then Moshe and the Jewish people would be stuck not knowing how to run a judicial system. You'd have Moshe standing there all day, the Jewish people standing there all day. Everybody's just upset and grumpy, long lines, and all because of Yisro. We needed Yisro, so to speak, to help figure out and how to settle our affairs. Now, that would be a terrible thing to suggest. Obviously, we would have figured it out. Hashem would have told Moshe what to do. So we didn't need Yisro per se for this piece of advice. So therefore, by introducing the story, it almost sounds like Yisro was the brains behind the thing, and we couldn't have done it without him. So what is the reason behind this information? So says the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, a fascinating thing. And he says, V'nireh, ki tam hadavar hu laharis Hashem es b'nei Yisrael, hadarahu v'chol dar v'dar. Hashem wanted to show the Jewish people that were at that time and every single other generation. Yesh be'umos gedolim b'havana u'b'haskalah. There are nations that have great intelligence and great knowledge. But say ulamad me haskalas Yisro ba'atzoso. Take a look at Yisro, how wise and how intelligent he was. Ofen seder b'nei adam asher bachar bo, and look at the path that he took, and what he was able to delineate and be very clear of what he should do. These nations and there are people out there in the non-Jewish world that they're very, very rich in wisdom. The reason why Hashem chose us is not because we are so intelligent and we're so wise and we're so bright and we're so smart and we're so creative. That is not the reason why Hashem chose us. And how does he know this? Take a look. Haskalas Yisro, the wisdom and intellect and brilliance of Yisro, the non-Jew. He was a non-Jew first. It wasn't because of our wisdom that Yisro chose us. Yisro didn't come because he saw the brilliance of the Jewish people. Rather, the reason why Hashem chose us is out of a kindness from Hashem and because of the love for our forefathers and that we are the children of those forefathers. Yisro was a brilliant, brilliant individual. He didn't come to the Jewish people and say, I want to be like you because I see you have culture, you have wisdom, you have knowledge, you have science, you have math. That wasn't what attracted him to the Jewish people. There's plenty of that wisdom in the world. That's not what we are about. Sure, we have plenty of brilliant mathematicians and scientists and engineers and authors and lawyers. We have them all. Plenty, no problem, no shortage. And that's not a bad thing. But that's not the essence of the Jewish nation. The essence of why Yisro chose the Jewish people, in spite of perhaps him being wiser than everybody else, is because he saw that Hashem loves us because of our relationship with him and because we were the children of our forefathers. And therefore, that's why Yisro was chosen to be put into the Torah, that we should hear this. Not that without him we couldn't figure it out, but rather to show that Yisro is showing us what we really are and who we really are and the value of what a Jew has to truly understand of why they're a Jew. We're not Jewish because we have great brains per se. We're not Jewish because we are the most intellectual nation on the planet. That's a mistake. That is not our claim to fame, so to speak. There's a very common misconception that we have in the holiday of Hanukkah. You know, in the old days, I remember as a kid, the coloring books and Hanukkah coloring books for kids, they had a big picture of a soldier, and the soldier had a beard and a yarmulke, and that was the representation of the Jewish soldiers, the Maccabees. And then you had these little pictures of these little, almost minifigure soldiers, and they were running for their lives, a whole bunch of them running for their lives. And that was the picture of the Greek soldiers. And that it breeds a conception to children to say that the Jewish nation is a mighty nation and we're strong, and that's the message we should take out of the miracle of Hanukkah. But that was far, far, far from the truth. The people that fought during Hanukkah, they were 12 people. They were living in caves, hiding for their lives, subsisting on berries and plants. They had never picked up a sword in their lives. They had no training as soldiers whatsoever. The Greeks were the mighty army. They were the ones that should be the big picture. And with the little picture of the Jewish people, because of a great miracle, Hashem pushed them away. And that's how the Jewish nation was able to succeed. Not because of some might or some wisdom or some intellect, but rather because we had Hashem on our side. So it's always important for us to reorient and make sure that we have the right outlook of who we are as a nation and as a people, and realize that the reason why Hashem chose us is because out of his love for our forefathers, for Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and previous generations, and because of our love, of his true kindness that he wants to provide for the Jewish people. That's the first piece of the Orach Chaim HaKadosh that I wanted to share with you tonight. That's the first outlook that we can learn from the Orach Chaim. But let's take a look at another piece. But for that, we have to see the next psukim. The next psukim in this week's parasha, I'm sure you know, tell us about the Aseres Hadibros. This is the Jewish people receiving the 10 commandments on Har Sinai. Here it is, the first parasha in the Torah that tells us that we received the Torah on Har Sinai. I had a student in school today. I teach the 6th grade for only half an hour a week. I really teach 7th grade, but half an hour a week on Thursday morning, from about 11:20 to 12 o'clock, almost 40 minutes. I go to the 6th grade and we have a little a class. It's officially supposed to be about character traits and improving character traits and learning about different traits, but it digressed and evolved into this discussion about fundamentals of Judaism, understanding that God gave us the Torah is from Shemayim, from heaven, from a divine presence, and all those kinds of things. And a kid turns to me today and he says, Rebbe, I have a question. So, okay, great. The questions are the best. I'd rather you ask me a question than me come and speak, because that way I get to know what you want to know about, and I get to talk to you and you get to hear what you want to hear. So he says, I have a question. He says, how do we know that the Torah is the truth? He says, if you go into a Catholic school, you know what's going to happen? You're going to hear them preaching that Catholicism is the truth. If you go to a school for Muslims, they're going to teach that Islam is the truth. If you go to a school for Mormons, they're going to teach that Mormon is the truth. So how do we know that we're the truth? I said, that's a brilliant question. I said, in fact, your question is such an important question that everybody has to ask this question. This is something we have to wonder and challenge for ourselves, and something we have to work on and find more sources to show the truth, to see that we have the truth. And I said, I'll tell you the most simple answer comes from this week's parasha. In this week's parasha, the 600,000 people that came out of Egypt, which was technically only 600,000 men between 20 and 60. So if every man was married, presumably, and there were older people and younger people, so you had women and children and aged elderly and so on. We're looking at 2 million people, 3 million, 2.5 million people somewhere. We're talking about a tremendous amount of people, and we all stood at the foot of the mountain, and God said, "I am God who took you out of Egypt. There should not be any other God." And we, as an entire nation, heard God talk to us. He told us the 10 commandments, and we heard it straight from Hashem. Every single Jew heard Hashem talk to him. Now, there's never been a religion on the planet that has even suggested, that has even tried to pretend that they had a revelation from God on a national level. Every other religion started with one person that had a revelation of God privately in a tent or on a mountain or in a forest, whatever it is. But it was one guy by himself, and everything is built on that guy's word, which is profoundly ridiculous in a sense. If I were to come to my class tonight and say, ladies and gentlemen, you should know God spoke to me, you'd probably close your Zoom screen and walk away and never look at me again. This guy's crazy, right? But we have the Jewish nation. I told this young man, our nation has millions of people that witness this. It's so true that the Christians believe that the Jewish people stood at the mountain and received the Torah from God. The Muslims also believe that we were there. They both agree that we have this. They just say God changed his mind somewhere else. Even though the Torah says over and over again, I won't give up and I'll never change my mind and you'll always be my people. Okay, whatever the questions are on them, that's not for now. But we see how powerful the truth of the Torah is coming from this week's parsha. And here we are. So that's just the introduction to understand the powerful event that we're about to read about. And it says, B'chodesh hashalishi l'tzeis b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. It was on the third month that the Jewish people left Egypt. Vayom hazeh bo midbar Sinai. It was on that day that we came to midbar Sinai. Now, the very simple question on this is, we came out of Egypt in the month of Nisan. The month of Nisan, the 14th of Nisan, we know the holiday of Passover is when we spend it. And Hashem, so to speak, has been waiting since the day of creation. The Torah says, if God did not create the dictums of the Torah, so then the guidelines and the dictums of the heavens and the earth should be away. Meaning the whole purpose of creation was to give the Jewish people the Torah. It says Yom Hashishi, that extra hay says, on the day that we were going to get the Torah, this is why God created the world. So finally, it's like been waiting. I've been waiting to do this for ages, says Hashem. And what does Hashem do? He waits a couple of months. He said, okay, I took you out of Egypt. Okay, let's not go today. Let's go tomorrow. It's the Chodesh HaShalishi. It's the third month. What were we doing for the past month and a half, 2 months? What took so long? If this was something that Hashem was dying, so to speak, desired so much to give us, why did Hashem wait to the third month? Why didn't we get it a few days after we left Egypt? So this is the first question that the Orach Chaim HaKadosh asks. And he wants to know, let's take a look. The tremendous desire that Hashem loved the Jewish people, the Goldel Cheshko, and his tremendous desire, Lases Lahem Arusasam, to give this engagement, Zos HaTorah, Tiksha, we should ask, knowing how powerful the Torah is and how much Hashem wanted to give it to us, we should ask, Lama Nisakev Hashem Mites HaTorah Ad Chodesh HaShlishi. Why did Hashem wait for the third month to give us the Torah? Kimin Simonei Ahava, the signs of a person who loves something. He doesn't hold on to things. He doesn't wait. A person, you feel tremendous gratitude for somebody. You want to call them right away and just say, thank you, I appreciate it so much. You know, I'll call them in a week. That shows that it's not really genuine, or it's not so heartfelt. So what is going on? Why is it that Hashem waited? So let's scroll down a little bit and we'll jump right into this very powerful explanation. Asher al Kain, says the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, Ba HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'nasan hamas l'adav. Hashem had to explain and tell us there's a reason why he had to delay. The reason why Hashem waited was not because there was a lack in the desire. It's because we weren't fully prepared yet. We were in such an impure place, and we were not yet ready to accept the Torah. We were like impure. We had to wait and count the counting of purity. Sheva Shabbos is 7 weeks. Asher tziva Hashem l'zava v'hu'amar l'tzeis b'nei Yisrael is l'tzeis b'nei Yisrael. When we left out, this is why it was on the third month, because we left Egypt, and therefore Hashem had to wait and say, "Let me get them purified." They have to get ready to go ahead and be prepared. Now, the Orach Chaim, I'm not going to go through every single line, but I'll scroll down and we'll see what are the three things. He says there are three things that Hashem needed us to be prepared with in order to be ready to receive the Torah. And he says, maybe I skipped it. I'm sorry. It's up here, perhaps. Oh, here we are. Yes. V'haraya kishekarvi yemei hachsharasam. Nope. I'm sorry. So he says this. This is going to show how much Hashem loved the Jewish people and wanted to give us the Torah. Ki lagodol chashko baruch hu bahem lo rotza lavim elis akevs man oruch v'lo chasana bebeis chasnas. Hashem didn't wait ages and ages until we had to give us a beautiful wedding, so to speak. Therefore, Hashem made us travel very quickly to the mountain and prepared us on the spot. A time came, so in essence, what it means that we came to the mountain and we were prepared to go ahead and receive the Torah. But nonetheless, we were not ready. So, okay, I'm sorry. That was not the part that I was looking for. I apologize. Here it is. These are the three things that we needed to prepare ourselves to receive the Torah. He wanted to give us his inheritance, his internal inheritance, which is the Torah. Number one, studying the Torah, going to classes, learning something on the side. The need to delve into this and to make it part and parcel of our life is the most important thing. That's the number one thing that we need. If a person is lazy, it's like a weed that just grows and ruins the ability to achieve. Success and greatness is one of the ingredients to greatness is a passion. If we're too lazy, then it's not good. So we need to have a passion for the Torah. That's number one. That's the first thing that we need to have. The second thing it tells us is that we have to have humility. And he tells us, that's why it says, Vayis'u me refidim, that there's a rifyon, there's a certain lowliness. I don't have to scroll down a lot because there's a lot of in the middle. I don't want to keep you all night. It says, Ayin beis hu shiflus v'ha'anava is the lowliness. He ain't divrei Torah miskayim ela b'misha mashpal atzmo. We have to look at ourselves as humble. We're not so great. We're not the greatest person on the world. Like the first piece of the Orach Chaim told us, the reason why Hashem chose us is not because we're brilliant and we're geniuses. That's not why. It's because of his love for us. And we have to keep that in mind, that there's always a creator above us. That's the second thing we need. And the third thing, we need to join together with groups of people, like-minded individuals who want to learn and grow together. One of the most important keys to success is having a group of people, such as yourselves, where you come together every Thursday night and you want to study and you want to learn. You're a group of people that want to grow, and therefore you do it together. It says it cannot be bad. We can't be alone. We need to be in a group. So this, as the Orach Chaim HaKadosh is all alluded to in the pasuk. It says, "Vayis'u me refidim." We came from Refidim, which was a place where we were lazy in the Torah, and we had to therefore inspire ourselves to push for the Torah. Vayavo Midbar Sinai, and we came to Midbar Sinai. We have to make ourselves like a desert, like nothing, like we're low in humility. Vayachanu Bamidbar, and we camped there. Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar, and look how the Torah changes from language of plural, Vayachanu, and right away when we camped, Vayichan Sham Yisrael, we were one unit. We were one group of people. We had that unity of desire to grow in a group. And these are the three keys that Hashem was waiting for us, that we had to prepare ourselves in order for us to be ready to accept the Torah. So just as a summary, to recap what we learned tonight is the first piece, that the parsha of Yitro, came to the desert with his advice, shows us that the reason why Hashem chose the Jewish nation was not because of our great brilliance or wisdom. You see, other nations have plenty of wisdom and plenty of brilliance, but rather Yisro saw, and therefore we should learn that the reason why Hashem chose us is out of his love for us and his desire to do kindness to us because of our forefathers. And the second thing is, why did Hashem wait to give us the Torah? The reason why he waited was not because of lack of desire. Rather, the reason why he waited was in order to show us that we had to prepare ourselves. The three things we had to prepare ourselves in was, number one, that we have to have passion and we have to desire to constantly grow and learn. And number two, that we also have to make sure that we stay humble and not to become full of ourselves. And number three, that we have to be together as a unit when we study and when we learn and when we grow in order to have the greatest path to success. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you all enjoyed. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Rabbi Yasher Koach, thank you.
Ashikoch, thank you. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Good Shabbos, and enjoy the weather.
Mm-hmm. Good with that.
Be well.
Take care.
Yeah.